Happy Master's Mahasamadhi to you all. We're so very fortunate to have such security in our lives. We're in a world today, of course, of lots of insecurity, and it seems that that is what humanity focuses on, is where can we find security? And of course, we see the common approaches, which are in our job, in our money, in our family, in our home, in all these things that are external to ourselves. And the one thing that they all have in common is that they're temporary. And when Swamiji held the autobiography of a yogi in the Doubleday Duran bookstore to his chest like this, when Doug Birch came up to him and started to tell him all about his success in his new radio career and his family that he was going to build, and he was going to find security. And Swamiji was too aware, just like each of us, we're too aware of the temporal nature of these securities. So we're so very fortunate to have found a security that's eternal. And this is what the Master came to give us, is the science of Kriya Yoga through which we could offer ourselves back into the infinite. So what I wanted to really touch on in my brief time, it's such a pleasure to offer some thoughts this evening with you all. And when I was looking through this book, The New Path, I came across many stories that were just so good to read and remember again. And in one of them, I was getting a great laugh because Swamiji was going to give a talk, and somebody advised to him to see the whole audience as cabbage heads. And Swami said he thanked him doubtfully. He said he thought that that might not work for him. But I thought about that, and I thought, well, a bunch of smiling devotees, my friends, you know, it's so much better than cabbage heads. So I figured I'd go with just what I can see is you all. Beautiful, smiling, devotional people. I'm going to read a little bit from the New Path. And what is security? Where do we find security? With all this scary stuff floating around in the world today, we can easily slip into the idea that we need to find security externally. But we know, as devotees, that our security, it comes through our attunement. It comes from being in tune with Master. He knows what to do about our various karmic situations, and we do not. So if we can be, like Jesus said, little children, then we'll be more like little children in Master's hands as we go through life. We will deepen our attunement, and we will find that security that we're seeking, which will remove from us all fear. As it says in Sri Yukteswar's chant, night and day in thy joy, I will deceive the enemy of desire. And he also speaks of the great security of the path of seeking God, of finding God, that it removes, what does it say? He says, you won't have to fear anything anymore. What greater security, how fortunate we are to be seeking real security. So the reading that I've chosen from the New Path is, Swamiji writes in his chapter, Work versus Meditation. He says, hard work was important to our way of life as regular meditation was. You must be intensely active for God, Master said, before you can attain that actionless state of union with Him. More than either work or meditation, however, was the stress he placed on the importance of devotion. Without love for God, he told us, no one can find Him. Nightly I chanted Master's translation of a song by the great Bengali saint Ram Prasad. Will that day come to me when saying, Mother, Mother, my eyes will flow with tears. Gradually I found myself becoming transformed inwardly. This is Swamiji getting in tune, feeling attunement. He says, I began to feel I had some cause for self-congratulation when one day word came to me that Master had been talking with a group of monks in Encinitas, and during the course of the conversation, he had remarked lovingly, "Look how I have changed, Walter." And of course, Walter is Swami Kriyananda. It was Yogananda ji's way of addressing him. So, look how I have changed, Walter. You can put your own name in that space. And I have a funny story about this, and it has to do with one of the places that I serve in the community is doing various catering jobs for events with my wife, Melody. And it was a long time ago. It was when Badri and Gita had just been engaged, and there was a big celebration for that. And so we were asked to do the catering. And so we decided to do a khichdi and these Indian potatoes and some other things. And we showed up at the house where we were going to be cooking, and I was very inexperienced at this time with cooking. And I didn't bring my own pot. And so the only pots that were there were these very thin-bottomed pots. And I started to cook the khichdi without the knowledge that this specific flame on this gas burner, it wasn't very reliable. It was like blowing around, and sometimes it'd be high, other times it'd go low. And it's just one of the things chefs deal with, is that you get in an unfamiliar kitchen and you gotta pray. So here we are, and I immediately start to, as soon as the khichdi starts to bubble up, I start to smell burning. I'm like, that's not right. It's not supposed to burn before it's done. It's supposed to burn if you leave it after it's been cooked. But nevertheless, it burned. And Jyotish and Devi were on the way, and they were coming with a large group of people who I wanted to give really good food to. I wanted to serve them the best food that I could make, and there was nothing we could do. It was burned. You could taste that burny taste in it. And so what did I do? It was very similar to Swamiji. He says, nightly I chanted Master's translation. He's just talking about going really into a devotional place where he's just offering himself constantly, and every thought that comes that's selfish, he's just offering it up, and he's just working so as hard as a human being can to attune themselves through devotion. And so what I did was I went in the corner of the kitchen, and I just started to pray. I said, Master, you will not do this. You cannot do this. You can't ruin the food for these 25 people who are coming for this beautiful engagement party. There must be something we can do. And this was one of the first real miracles I saw in my life. In my mind, the thought came as a result of the prayer. Go see what other ingredients you have left in your bag. So I go in the bag, and there's 2 cans of coconut milk in there. I opened those up and poured them in. And the khichdi had the most uniquely wonderful flavor. It was like smoky coconut khichdi. And that's what we wrote on the board. We wrote smoky coconut khichdi. And I could feel, after this reading, I could hear Master say, look how I've changed Kalidas's khichdi. And, each one of us has these experiences that help us grow in our attunement. And it doesn't always involve ease and pleasure, does it? Usually it involves struggle that we really don't know if we can handle or not. And that's kind of what causes us to pray and offer ourselves so sincerely. And as a result, we draw that blessing, that real security, and that grows, doesn't it? You who have been on the path so long, you have no cause to fear anymore, because that attunement with your guru, it's eternal. It takes you beyond this world. And so Master left this world 68 years ago, and he didn't leave this world. He's here with us. He's living in us. And it's said many times in many Indian philosophies that one must have a living guru. One must have a living teacher. And we have this great blessing of community in which we're surrounded by them. We're surrounded by devotees getting in tune with the guru. And Master said that God works through instruments. And so he said he especially works through those who are in tune with him. So I look at the community, I see teachers everywhere. And what are they teaching? They're not pulling up a blackboard and pointing at points. They're living the spiritual teachings. No matter what comes up in their life, they're applying the spiritual teachings. And for me, when I veer off the path, which happens often, I have these examples of these great teachers who bring me back to the path, who show me the example once again of what I need to be doing. Praying, one thing, offering myself, and I'd say most of all, asking Master to flow through me in everything that I do. Because it's His power that's going to carry us through the spiritual eye. It's His power that's going to write books through Swami Kriyananda. It's His power that's going to do whatever your dharma is. So, even when Master was alive, people would come to him and say, "What should I do about this challenge?" And they would detail it, long, detail-oriented challenge, a conundrum. And Master would not give them, usually, specific advice. He would say, put your mind here, do your best, and give it to God with devotion. And why did he do that? Why wouldn't an omniscient Master just tell them what to do if he knew the path for each of us? Why wouldn't he tell us that that pot had too thin of a bottom? Why wouldn't he tell me that? He wanted this problem to happen so I could grow in my attunement. And so when people would come to him with questions, he would say, you grow in your attunement. Get in touch with me inside you. That will be your power. If I just tell you what to do, you'll be dependent on this external body to you. So attunement is our greatest security. And we live in such insecure times, it's a blessing because none of it's going to work besides our attunement with something that doesn't end. The love of God, the joy of God, and the joy of living for God together. So thank you all for being part of this community and just adding your essential piece to it, because we're all helping each other to grow so very fast. And I'd say if there's one other thing that does provide us with deep security, it's the spiritual community. It's that we live with kind people who wish well to us. And you know, each of us has had that experience of the great blessing of community in some unique way, saving us and keeping us on the path and helping us see what we need to do to get back in tune. And we'll get blown many times off what they call the razor's edge. The path is a razor's edge. But when we see people get blown on their butt and they fall and they get hurt, we help them get back up. And that's what it is. We're just all getting back up together. The force of Maya that God made is very strong. So it blows us off the razor's edge and we fall and we have hard times. And this is a really good quote I'll end with Swamiji. He says, and this is also very much applies to each of our lives, I think. There were times when I myself, this is Swamiji speaking, he says, there were times when I myself felt that Master had erred in some matter, or had not sufficiently grasped some point. There was even a time, as you'll see in a later chapter, when my questioning took the form of more serious doubts, but always I found in time that it was he who was right. And of course, apply this to your own life. He's sending you situations that sometimes you'll think, is Master, I think he may have missed something here. This isn't right. And always in time, we will find that it was he who was right, won't we? And we each have our own appropriate challenge. No one's is more difficult than any other, because we have the Guru. He's going to help us through it, and it's going to be an appropriate challenge. Always it will be he who is right. And let me just finish that paragraph. He says, always I found in time that it was he who was right. His actions, unusual though they sometimes were, and not always reasonable in appearance, were based on sure intuitions that incredibly always worked out for the best. This is, again, each of our stories as we tune into that great security of the omnipresent Guru. He says, whenever his plans went awry, it was, I think, because of our own want of attunement in carrying them out. And so we have a chant. If I find not those pearls of wisdom, I won't blame the sea for not containing them. I will find fault with my diving, with my own search. It needs to deepen. If I'm having struggle and the karmic struggle is tearing me apart, and it doesn't seem like this could possibly come from love, it's our job to deepen that attunement. And remember, the Master said only love can take my place. So that's a place to start. How can we get back in tune when the karmic tides have overtaken us? Only love can take my place. The Master will show us again as we put our mind here, as we do our best, and as we give this challenge to God with devotion. He will help us to find that transcendence and that freedom from our karma that we're all seeking. So thank you all for attending this beautiful ceremony in which all of our energies combined draw such powerful blessings. Jai Guru.